Hi there, Dr. Becca here with Del Mar Center for Behavioral Health with another short video, part 2, for parents and caregivers about what to expect when you're getting ready for ABA or Applied Behavior Analysis services. So in the last video, I talked a little bit about what sessions might look like and that you are not responsible to be there all the time. And I got some questions about more information or people wanting more information about what exactly sessions might look like. And I think that's a great question. And while I can talk a little bit about what our sessions look like at Del Mar, there's also going to be some variability between different providers because while we are all using the scientific strategies and techniques of behavior analysis in an applied setting, we are all still different people and we may do things a little bit differently. Typically, people are most familiar with what's called DTT or discrete trial teaching, and that's when a lot of times the stereotype is sitting at a table and sort of looking at cards or flipping cards that have different images or sequences of images and working on very specific skills in that way. Discrete meaning that there's a very specific beginning and end. So usually there is what's called a discriminative stimulus, which basically means a question is asked or a directive is given, and then the child responds, and it's either correct or incorrect. And if it's correct, there's some sort of reinforcement, and if it's incorrect, there's typically an error correction procedure, which usually means different levels of prompting to help the child or reteaching or a few different techniques. The other part is there's really natural environment teaching, and that's what we do most of at Del Mar Center for Behavioral Health. Partially because play is the language of childhood, and so kids learn naturally through play. It's developmentally appropriate, but also because many of our kids have deficits in the area of play skills, and so they could benefit and do benefit from not only working on increasing vocabulary and other pro-social skills, but really the idea that play is a skill that can be learned, and we want to be working on that as well. So if it's a home session, maybe we come in, we're going to check in with you. Is anything new or different? Is there anything we need to know today before we get started on session? And oftentimes that'll be things like, my child didn't sleep last night, so he might be extra tired, or dad's getting ready to deploy, or we have family in town this week. So anything that might make or contribute to the child's behavior being a little bit different. And that is important because then we can plan for session accordingly. So just like us, when we don't sleep well the night before, I don't do my best work the next day. And so when we know that from the onset, we can be looking for those indicators of fatigue, because above all else, we want to be sure that we are maintaining that relationship, the relationship between us and the child. Then typically we'll get started on working on active goals. And these are goals that have been created with you. They have your feedback. And so everyone knows what we are all working on. And that's done in a variety of ways, using discrete trials, using natural environment teaching, using some materials that we probably bring with us, as well as using materials that are in your home. If it's a clinic session, we're still going to ask if there's anything we need to know about for that session, and then we'll typically go back and get started again working on those goals that we've been working, or that we collaborated together. Sessions are not just work. Breaks are just as important as work time. We know that neuroscience has shown us that when we're learning a new skill, the active time working on that skill is important, but also when we're not actively working on that skill, our neuronal pathways or the roads between our neurons, which are the communicators in our brain, are still working. And so during breaks, those connections are still being formed. And nobody can work 24/7, and our kids are included. So we are actively working while also actively taking breaks. That's to make sure that we're maintaining that relationship. So I talked in another video about pairing, which is we want to be doing that every session, multiple times during a session, so that I think of it as making deposits into a bank account. And so when you make a bunch of deposits, you can make some withdrawals. But if you haven't made any deposits and you make a withdrawal, then you bounce. And there's often fines and other not so great stuff that's aligned with that. And relationships are the same. And we want to be sure that your child enjoys spending time with us for the most part, right? I mean, we're going to push them to do things that are new and just outside of what they're able to do. But we also recognize that if we don't have a relationship, that they're not going to feel safe enough to be vulnerable with us, which is exactly what we're asking them to do when we're asking them to do a new skill or try something different. And so we'll be working and taking breaks and working and taking breaks. And that is one of the balancing acts of being an RBT or a BCBA or a therapist or being in a variety of other relationships, is that we're encouraging the person to grow and to be slightly uncomfortable while also nurturing a positive relationship. At the end of session, typically we stop 10 or 15 minutes early so that we can get caught up on taking any notes and data that we may have been taking on our hand. I often will make lines on my hand if I don't have my iPad right there, or when I was taking paper data, if I didn't have my data book right there. And so I want to get that entered, because we know that the sooner we get that entered, the better or the more accurate that data is. And as I talked about in another video about data, we are making data-based decisions. So we want to be sure that the data we're taking is good data. We also have a requirement to complete session notes every session, and that's using words like a qualitative descriptor of what happened in the session. What were the things that she loved playing? What did he not like doing? We also may make notes about any of those things that you mentioned at the beginning of session, like so-and-so had trouble sleeping. And then we'll get a parent signature to show that we were where we said we were and that we were a part of session. And then the session is over. This can be for a variety of different durations. Some kids have an hour-and-a-half session, some have 4-hour sessions. So it really depends on the age of your child, the skill deficits, their current ability to pay attention, funding sources, as well as scheduling needs. And so all of that's taken into account. I hope this video has given some insight about what to expect when you're getting ready to start ABA services. Starting something new can often create anxiety because we're not sure what to expect. And so hopefully these videos help to give some insight to help you make a decision about whether it's a good fit for your family or not. Again, I'm Dr. Becca with Del Mar Center for Behavioral Health, and thanks for taking some time to join me. Have a great day.